Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Fighter Series on Red Corner Boxing, coming to you live from Cincinnati, Ohio, in the United States. Today it is episode 12 on the second half of the greatest fight in recent boxing history. It is none other than Thomas the Hitman Hearns. Later on, I will reveal the 40-year anniversary of his super fight with Marvin Hagler coming up, but I will divulge more into his career and as well as his career accolades and his place in history. Coming out of the Croc Gym in Detroit, Michigan, Tommy Hearns was the standout of the late Emmanuel Stewart. As we know, he's more than just a trainer to him. He was a father figure and a friend. Basically, someone who he could lean on for things not just boxing related, but also life related, because that's who Emmanuel Stewart was to his fighters, especially when it came to Thomas Hearns, which was his number one project. In the 1976 Olympic trials, he met the standout Aaron Pryor out of Cincinnati, Ohio, lost a controversial decision, but immediately turned pro and got off to a blazing start to show the whole world his skills. A 6'2" lanky welterweight who didn't look like it much because he was literally built out of sticks from the television view. But that 1-2 he would put on you would do massive damage and put you on the canvas. And basically his coming out party came in 1980 when he fought Pepino Cuevas for the welterweight championship in his hometown of Detroit, Michigan. And it was early in the second round where it was that trademark right hand where it literally spun Pepino Cuevas around and spun him around to where the second right hand put Cuevas down face first. Cuevas beat the count, but the fight was ruled over at that point, and Thomas Hearns reached his goal of winning the welterweight championship of the world. And it was after that fight, the huge buildup began for the super fight of September 16, 1981 against Sugar Ray Leonard started to take place. And it was the biggest gross gaining fight at the time in boxing history, at least south of the heavyweight division. In a fight that was basically split in terms of odds and a true 50-50 fight. It basically lived up to the billing and then some, because when Hearns and Leonard went at it for the undisputed welterweight championship, both fighters gave it their all, showed a display of heart, skill, will, determination. And even though Hearns did lose the 14th round TKO to Ray Leonard, his legacy enhanced a little bit because it goes to show you, even though he lost a fight, how you perform in the loss on the world of boxing is different from other sports. And Thomas Hearns acquitted himself quite well, despite the losing effort to Ray Leonard, who, as we know, escalated to one of the all-time great fighters of all time. But it didn't hinder Hearns. He went up immediately to junior middleweight to win a couple of world titles. Then came the fight in 1983 against Wilfred Benitez for the super welterweight championship. In a fight where basically, again, it could have gone either way. Benitez being a multi-division world champion, and Hearns using this to probably try and land a potential rematch with Ray Leonard. Hearns put on a dazzling show of a boxing lesson, landing 1-2s, keeping the tough and stand-up Benitez at bay to win a closer than real majority decision in a fight that wasn't even that close. And it was a display of the skill level that the great Thomas the Hitman Hearns showed and displayed on that day. And at that point, we had the original tentative scheduling fight of 1982 between him and Marvin Hagler. The fight was postponed because Hearns had attained a pinky injury and had negotiations that didn't go through in his favor. But he still went on with his career, stopping Marcos Geraldo, and then landing this super fight at that time, June 15, 1984, against the iconic Roberto Duran. And one of the more bone-chilling, exciting, almost jaw-dropping and shocking moments in the history of the sport, not in terms of the result, but more of how the result was. The right hand that crushed Duran on the chin by Hearns, and Hearns putting Duran on his face, down and out for the count in only 2 rounds. There's a lot of reasons for it. But what happened on that night was Tommy Hearns just hit Duran in the sweet spot, and Duran was just down and out cold. And Roberto Duran, 41 years later, is still seeing stars after that punch. And it was after that fight, Tommy Hearns officially called out for the super fight of 1985 against Marvelous Marvin Hagler for the undisputed middleweight championship. A lengthy buildup in a fight where basically legacies were on the line. Sugar Ray Leonard was sidelined. Hagler and Hearns having beat Duran. The winner of this fight was going to be the landmark fighter in boxing to the stature of the best fighter pound for pound. And what happened? And this night, we saw just both guys just come out and just let their fists go in the greatest 8-minute combat in boxing history, which included the greatest first round in boxing history. Hagler took the fight to Hearns. Hearns took the fight to Hagler. Hagler would come back. Hearns would come back. And you had basically a free-for-all in boxing history. And definitely Tommy Hearns is one of the all-time greats. In a weird way, you can say even though he lost to Hagler, he put himself in that category because, again, like the loss to Leonard, his stature elevated to higher levels. Basically, he showed he was more than just a fighter with skill, that he had will and he had heart. It's just Marvin Hagler was just more determined to win that fight for his own reasons, as I discussed last week. But Hearns, after the Hagler fight, managed to establish his legacy and start to elevate himself. And within a year and a half in his hometown of Detroit, he would win the light heavyweight championship from Dennis Andres. And then several months later, he would move back down to middleweight to challenge a standout from Argentina named Juan Roldan in a give-and-take fight where the power of Tommy Hearns just wore out Juan Roldan to the final right hand that knocked him out in the fourth round, to where Hearns would win the middleweight championship. Its significance because he became the first fighter in boxing history to win world titles in 4 weight classes at a time when multiple weight division championships meant something in the sport. Hearns was the first to do it. Now, the unfortunate thing for him, in his first title defense, he would lose his title against Iran Barkley. Oh, yeah, he never quit. Tommy Hearns' heart is probably as big as the United States of America. I mean, that's how big Tommy Hearns' heart was. Definitely a warrior. He fought that Hagler fight with a broken hand after like 30 seconds in. That should tell you something about Tommy Hearns. He did lose Iran Barkley. Eventually got the rematch with Sugar Ray Leonard in 1989 in a fight where most ringside observers thought Hearns won the fight, floored Leonard twice. Due to some weird scoring of the rounds of that fight, and I mean weird scoring, somehow the fight was ruled a draw. And Tommy Hearns, in my opinion, like everybody else, should have been declared the winner. But the end game for him probably was in 1991, when he's supposed to be an opponent for Virgil Hill for his light heavyweight championship. Hearns turned back the clock and gave Virgil Hill a boxing lesson to win the championship there. He would lose it in a rematch to Iran Barkley in 92, and that was basically his end game at that point. But lots of history when it comes to Tommy Hearns and the Kronk stable with Emanuel Stewart, because obviously Hearns was probably the greatest fighter to ever come out of the Kronk stable. We consider the deep roster they had with guys like Hilmer Kenty, Michael Moore, even some of the all-time greats have fought and trained under Emanuel Stewart, like, of course, Lennox Lewis, Evander Holyfield, Vladimir Klitschko, Julio Cesar Chavez, Oscar De La Hoya, just to name several of them. But easily, Tommy the Hitman Hearns was his number one project. Left us wonderful memories during the Four Kings era of Leonard, Hagler, Hearns, and Duran, when the four of them from 1980 to the Hagler-Leonard fight in 87 fought each other at the very best, when it was all about greatness and prestige and being competitive against the best and not about A side, B side, or financial dollars. It was all about greatness, and Tommy Hearns was in the middle of that.